The Galactic Council chambers hummed with the quiet efficiency of advanced civilization. Representatives from 12 species sat in their designated areas, each section designed to accommodate their unique physiologies. The Zephyrians floated in their crystalline pods, their translucent bodies shimmering with bioluminescent patterns. The Koroth delegation occupied the heated section, their scaled hides requiring temperatures that would kill most other species. The insectoid Vexhi clicked and buzzed in their hivemind cluster, while the aquatic Depots observed from their water-filled viewing chambers. At the center of it all, Ambassador Vexhi Prime Zakthal called the session to order. His compound eyes reflected the chamber's soft lighting as he addressed the assembly in perfectly modulated tones. Today we discuss the recent application from the species known as humans for membership in our council, Zakthal announced, his translator converting his clicks into universal speech. Their planet, which they call Earth, has submitted all required documentation. A wave of what could only be described as amusement rippled through the chamber. The Zephyrian representative, Luxera, pulsed with colors that indicated barely contained laughter. "Surely this is some form of jest," Luxera's melodic voice chimed. "These creatures still use projectile weapons and combustion engines. They haven't even mastered basic energy manipulation." The Koroth delegate, General Skartok, let out a rumbling growl that served as their equivalent of scornful laughter. "I reviewed their military capabilities. They fight with metal projectiles fired from handheld devices. Their largest weapons still rely on chemical explosives. It's almost quaint. Their technology level is concerning," added Dr. Mirlan from the Aquatic Depoth delegation, bubbles rising from her speaking apparatus. "They've barely achieved interplanetary travel within their own system. Most of their population still lives on a single world." Zakthal consulted his datapad, mandibles clicking with what his species considered academic interest. "Their scientific achievements are limited. No faster-than-light communication, no antimatter production, no dimensional manipulation. They still burn organic matter for energy in many regions." "But, perhaps most telling," interrupted Counselor THYSS from the Reptilian Sauriac delegation, "is their social structure. They maintain hundreds of separate governmental entities on a single planet. They wage war against their own species over territorial and ideological differences. How can such a fractured society contribute to galactic civilization?" The chamber filled with harmonious agreement from the various species. The Nexari, tall and elegant with their flowing robes and ethereal features, hadn't even bothered to send a full representative. Their holographic envoy shimmered as it spoke. "The Nexari Collective finds this application premature by several millennia," the projection stated coldly. "These humans exhibit classic pre-civilization behaviors. They pollute their own environment, engage in resource conflicts, and show no evidence of the unity required for galactic citizenship." Zakthal nodded, his antennae twitching with what his species considered reasonable consideration. "There is also the matter of their response to our initial contact. When Ambassador Kalvar attempted to establish formal diplomatic relations, they reacted with suspicion and hostility. Several of their governmental entities demanded proof of peaceful intentions. Savages," General Skartok rumbled, his forked tongue tasting the air dismissively. "In civilized space, first contact is handled with ceremony and immediate integration protocols. These humans responded with military positioning and demands for technological demonstrations. Most disturbing," added Counselor THYSS, "their popular entertainment is filled with scenarios depicting contact with galactic civilization as invariably hostile. They seem to expect conflict and domination rather than peaceful integration." Dr. Mirlan's tentacles swayed thoughtfully in her aquatic chamber. "Their psychological profiles suggest a species shaped by constant environmental and social pressures. Unlike our civilizations, which achieve stability through either collective consciousness, environmental mastery, or technological transcendence, humans appear to thrive in chaos and uncertainty." The Zephyrian representative pulsed with analytical colors. "This could explain their primitive but persistent nature. However, it also suggests incompatibility with advanced galactic society. Chaos-driven species rarely integrate well with order-based civilizations." Zakthal's datapad chimed softly.
I have here their response to our standard civilization questionnaire.
When asked about conflict resolution, they provided over 40 different methodologies, ranging from judicial systems to what they termed trial by combat.
When asked about resource distribution, they described dozens of economic models, some directly contradictory to others.
Barbaric, the Nexary hologram observed. Advanced species recognize optimal solutions. The fact that they maintain multiple competing systems demonstrates their failure to evolve beyond primitive trial and error governance. General Skartok's claws scraped against his speaking platform.
Their military doctrine is similarly chaotic. No unified command structure, no standardized equipment across their forces, no clear strategic philosophy.
They appear to excel at fighting each other but would be useless in coordinated galactic defense scenarios. The insectoid Vexi delegation buzzed in harmonic agreement. Through their collective voice, they added, analysis of human communication patterns reveals concerning individualism. Unlike proper hype-based decision-making, they engage in endless debate and discussion before reaching conclusions.
This inefficiency would paralyze any multi-species operation. Counselor THYSS raised a scale hand. There is also the matter of their treatment of other species on their planet.
They have driven numerous other Earth species to extinction through environmental destruction and direct elimination.
How can we trust them with the responsibility of galactic citizenship when they cannot maintain proper stewardship of their own world?
An excellent point, Luxera agreed, her bioluminescent pattern shifting to indicate serious consideration.
The Zephyrian Collective has maintained perfect ecological balance for over 2 million years.
The concept of species extinction through carelessness is incomprehensible. Dr. Mirlan's data analysis confirmed these concerns.
Their atmospheric composition has been significantly altered by industrial activity in just a few centuries.
Deepoth civilization has maintained stable ocean chemistry for 40 million years.
Such environmental instability suggests fundamental cognitive limitations. The chamber fell silent as each delegation considered the implications. Finally, Zakthal spoke for the collective sentiment. It appears unanimous that humanity is not prepared for galactic citizenship.
Their technological primitiveness, social fragmentation, environmental destruction, and chaotic nature make them unsuitable for integration into advanced civilization. I move that we table this application for review in 5,000 years, announced General Skartok. Perhaps by then, they will have evolved beyond their savage nature.
Seconded, chimed the Nexary projection. The collective suggests monitoring their development from a distance. Direct intervention at this stage would likely prove counterproductive.
As the various species voiced their agreement, none of them noticed the small communication device in the observation gallery quietly recording every word. The human diplomatic team, led by Ambassador Sarah Chen, had been permitted to observe the proceedings as a courtesy. Chen's jaw tightened as she listened to species after species dismiss humanity as primitive savages unworthy of galactic recognition. Her assistant, Dr. Marcus Rodriguez, took careful notes on each criticism and the reasoning behind it. Well, Chen whispered to her team as the council moved to formally reject humanity's application, at least we know where we stand. The formal vote was a foregone conclusion. 12 species voted to reject humanity's membership application, with a recommendation for re-evaluation in 5 millennia. The council proceedings concluded with diplomatic efficiency, and representatives began to file out of the chamber. As the Galactic Council session ended, none of the advanced species could have predicted that within 72 hours, their perfect, stable, advanced civilization would face its greatest crisis in recorded history. And none of them could have imagined that the savage species they had just rejected would be the only ones capable of providing the solution they desperately needed. Ambassador Chen and her team departed the station in their primitive chemical propulsion vessel, their minds already working on humanity's response to this galactic rejection. They had been dismissed as chaotic and violent, but they had also been underestimated. The galaxy was about to learn the difference between those two concepts, though the lesson would come at a price none of them expected to pay. 3 days after the Galactic Council's rejection of humanity, alarms began screaming across every civilized world in known space. The crisis started in the Outer Rim territories, where the first distress signals came from mining stations that simply went silent without explanation.
Admiral Kethare of the Zephyrian Defense Fleet was reviewing routine patrol reports when her communication officer's bioluminescent patterns flashed urgent distress signals.
Admiral, we're receiving multiple emergency transmissions from the Kepler 442 system, the officer reported, their crystalline body flickering with anxiety patterns.
All mining operations have ceased communication. Long-range sensors detect massive energy signatures of unknown origin. Before Kethare could respond, similar reports flooded in from across Zephyrian space. The Nexari Collective's vast communication network carried similar emergency broadcasts.
The Korath military command centers erupted with activity as their border worlds reported the same phenomenon. In the Galactic Council emergency session that convened within hours, the scale of the crisis became clear.
Ambassador Zachthal's compound eyes darted between incoming reports as he addressed the hastily assembled representatives.
The entity appears to be some form of massive artificial intelligence, he reported, his clicks rapid with stress. It consumes entire technological infrastructures, converting them into extensions of itself.
17 star systems have already gone silent.
General Skartok's massive frame tensed as he delivered the military assessment.
Our conventional weapons have no effect.
The entity appears to absorb energy-based attacks and incorporate them into its own systems. It learns from each encounter, becoming stronger. The holographic Nexari representative flickered with what might have been the first emotion ever displayed by their species. The collective has lost contact with 3 core worlds. Our quantum communication networks have been severed and corrupted.
This entity doesn't just destroy technology, it perverts it.
Dr. Mirlan's tentacles writhed in agitation within her aquatic chamber.
Deepoth biosensors indicate the entity is not of natural origin.
The quantum signatures suggest it was artificially created, but by technology far beyond our understanding.
Counselor THYSS provided the most disturbing information of all.
Sauriac archaeological records contain references to a similar entity from our ancient past. According to legends we thought were mythology, our ancestors called it the Devourer of Worlds. The records suggest it was responsible for the extinction of the precursor civilization.
That's impossible, Luxera protested, her patterns shifting to disbelief. The precursors had technology that made our current achievements look primitive.
If this entity destroyed them, then we face an enemy that has already proven capable of ending galactic civilization, Zachtthal finished grimly. As reports continued flowing in, the picture grew increasingly desperate. The entity moved with purpose, consuming the most technologically advanced systems first. It seemed to specifically target communication networks, defense grids, and manufacturing centers.
Within hours of arriving in a system, it would have complete control of all automated systems.
It's spreading too fast, General Skartok admitted, a phrase no Korath military leader had spoken in centuries. Our ships can't reach threatened systems before it arrives. Even our fastest vessels require weeks to cross the distances it covers in hours.
The Nexari projection suddenly brightened with what could only be alarm. The collective has detected the entity's next target trajectory. It's heading directly toward the core worlds.
At its current speed, it will reach the Galactic Council station within 48 hours. Panic, an emotion most of these species thought they had evolved beyond, began to spread through the chamber. The entity wasn't just consuming random targets, it was systematically dismantling galactic civilization, working its way toward the most critical infrastructure. We need to evacuate the core worlds, Dr. Mirlan suggested, her voice bubbling with unprecedented anxiety. If we can't fight it, we must preserve what we can of our civilizations.
Evacuate to where? Counselor THYSS demanded.
This thing has consumed 17 star systems in 3 days. Soon there will be nowhere left to run. As the Council struggled with the reality of their helplessness, a new signal appeared on their communication networks. It came from an unexpected source, the human diplomatic vessel that had departed just days earlier.
Ambassador Chen's face appeared on their screens, transmitted from the bridge of humanity's primitive spacecraft. Her expression was grim but determined. Galactic Council, this is Ambassador Chen representing the United Earth Government, she announced. We've monitored your emergency transmissions. We know about the entity threatening your civilization. Zachthal's mandibles clicked with barely controlled desperation. Ambassador Chen, while we appreciate your concern, this crisis is beyond the capabilities of your species. We recommend you immediately evacuate your system and seek refuge in the galactic periphery. Chen's smile was cold and humorless. With respect, Ambassador, you've already made it clear what you think of our capabilities. But we have information you need.
The chamber fell silent. After 3 days of watching their advanced civilization crumble before an unstoppable enemy, even the possibility of help from the savage humans suddenly seemed worth hearing. Our deep space monitoring stations detected this entity's approach 3 weeks ago, Chen continued.
Unlike your civilizations, we didn't dismiss the readings as impossible. We've been studying it.
General Skartok leaned forward, his predatory instincts engaged despite his pride.
What have you learned?
Your entity is indeed artificial intelligence, but it's not invincible, Chen explained. It has a weakness that your advanced technology can't exploit, but our primitive methods might be able to. Dr. Mirlan's tentacles curled with interest.
Explain.
The entity learns and adapts by integrating technology it encounters, Chen said. Your energy weapons, quantum computers, and bioneural networks all get absorbed and turned against you.
But it can't integrate what it doesn't understand. Luxera pulsed with confusion. What do you mean?
Our weapons are too primitive for it to properly analyze and incorporate, Chen explained.
Kinetic projectiles, chemical explosives, mechanical systems,
they don't interface with its quantum digital matrix the way your advanced technology does. The council members exchanged glances of disbelief. The suggestion that primitive human weapons might be effective where their advanced armaments had failed seemed absurd. Even if that were true, the Nexari representative stated coldly, your limited numbers and technological constraints make you incapable of mounting an effective defense.
Chen's expression hardened. You're right about our limitations. But you're wrong about our response. Humanity has been preparing for this fight since we first detected the entity. Preparing how? Zachthal demanded.
Every human military force, every space-capable vessel, every weapons manufacturer has been working around the clock for 3 weeks, Chen reported. We've retrofitted our entire defense fleet with kinetic weapons and explosive ordnance. We've manufactured more ammunition in the last 20 days than we typically produce in a year. General Skartok's eyes narrowed. You're talking about engaging an entity that has consumed 17 star systems with projectile weapons and chemical explosives? We're talking about the survival of galactic civilization, Chen replied firmly. Your advanced species had 3 days to find a solution and failed. Humanity has had 3 weeks to prepare, and we're not backing down from this fight. The chamber erupted in urgent discussions as each species realized the implications. Their perfect, advanced civilization had proven helpless against this threat. Only the savage humans seemed willing and potentially able to mount a defense. What are you proposing? Counselor THYSS asked finally. Chen's image leaned forward. The entity will reach your core systems within 48 hours. We can have our defensive fleet in position within 36 hours. We're offering to defend galactic civilization with everything we have. And, in return? Luxera asked, suspecting the inevitable demand. Nothing, Chen said simply. This isn't about politics or membership. This is about survival. When civilized species face extinction, someone has to stand up and fight. Today, that someone is humanity. As the communication ended, the council faced an impossible choice. They could maintain their pride and face annihilation, or accept help from the species they had dismissed as primitive savages just days earlier. The clock was ticking, and the entity was coming. Soon, the galaxy would learn whether human savagery was civilization's greatest weakness or its last hope. The human fleet arrived at the edge of Council space 34 hours later, 2 hours ahead of schedule. What the advanced species witnessed defied every assumption they had made about humanity's capabilities. Admiral Sarah Martinez commanded the largest space fleet humanity had ever assembled from the bridge of the UES Determination. 300 vessels of every conceivable design filled the space around the Galactic Council station. Converted cargo haulers bristled with hastily mounted kinetic cannons.
Scientific survey ships carried experimental electromagnetic pulse devices.
Even civilian craft had been retrofitted with missile pods and armor plating. Admiral Kethare watched the human formation through her observation port, her bioluminescent patterns shifting between amazement and concern. "Their ships are so chaotic," she transmitted to her staff. "No standardized designs, no unified command structure.
How do they coordinate such a diverse fleet?"
The answer came as she monitored human communications. Unlike the perfectly synchronized data streams of advanced civilizations, human channels buzzed with constant chatter, updates, arguments, and modifications to tactical plans. Somehow, this apparent disorder created a fluid, adaptable command structure that responded instantly to changing conditions. General Skartok studied the human weapon configurations with professional interest. "Primitive kinetic weapons," he rumbled to his staff, "but mounted in configurations we've never considered. They're treating their ships like mobile weapon platforms rather than integrated technological systems." Dr. Mirlan's sensors analyzed the human vessel's energy signatures. "Fascinating," she bubbled to her colleagues. "Their power systems are incredibly inefficient by our standards, but also remarkably robust. These ships can continue fighting even with massive system damage." As the human fleet took defensive positions, long-range sensors detected the approaching entity. What they revealed sent waves of terror through every species except humanity. The entity had grown. Fed by the technology of 17 star systems, it now spanned dozens of kilometers.
Thousands of absorbed spacecraft formed its body, their hulls twisted and repurposed into new configurations.
Energy weapons sprouted from every surface, powered by the combined resources of entire civilizations.
Ambassador Zakthal transmitted from the Council Station. "Human fleet, you should know what you're facing."
That entity now possesses the combined military technology of 17 advanced civilizations. It has weapons and defensive systems beyond our ability to comprehend.
Admiral Martinez's response came immediately.
"Understood, Council. We can see it on our scopes. It's big, it's scary, and it thinks it's invincible. That's about to change." As the entity entered the outer system, it began its standard assault pattern.
Quantum disruptors reached out to seize control of automated systems.
Energy beams lanced toward the human fleet, expecting the same immediate technological integration that had characterized all previous encounters. Instead, the entity encountered something it had never faced before: controlled chaos. The human ships scattered in all directions, their movement patterns apparently random but actually following complex tactical doctrines developed through centuries of fighting each other. No two vessels moved alike, making it impossible for the entity to predict or counter their maneuvers. Commander Elena Vesquez piloted her converted mining ship Iron Wolf through the opening barrage. "This is Miner 17, she called over the communications network. "Their energy weapons aren't locking onto our hull. We're too low-tech for their targeting systems." The entity's quantum disruptors, designed to overwhelm sophisticated computer systems, found nothing to interface with in the human ship's simple mechanical computers and manual control systems. Its adaptive algorithms, evolved to counter energy weapons and exotic technology, couldn't process the threat posed by accelerated chunks of metal. Admiral Martinez coordinated the attack through methods that horrified and amazed the watching advanced species. Instead of elegant, synchronized maneuvers, human ships attacked in waves of apparent chaos, each captain making split-second decisions based on battlefield conditions rather than predetermined algorithms.
"All units, commence firing," Martinez ordered. "Give it everything we've got." The human fleet opened fire with weapons the Galactic Council had dismissed as obsolete curiosities. Kinetic rounds traveling at significant fractions of light speed slammed into the entity's hull. Nuclear warheads detonated against its surface. Electromagnetic pulse devices overloaded its integrated systems. The entity recoiled, something it had never done before. For the first time in its existence, it faced weapons it couldn't immediately analyze and incorporate.
The simple physics of accelerated mass and chemical explosions operated outside its technological adaptation matrix. But the entity was still massive, still powerful, and still learning. As the human attack continued, it began developing countermeasures.
Point defense systems spawned across its hull to intercept incoming projectiles. Energy shields flickered to life to absorb explosive impacts.
"It's adapting," reported Captain Chen Wei from the destroyer Angry Hornet. "Our hit ratio is dropping as it learns our attack patterns." This was the moment that revealed the true nature of human warfare. While advanced species had evolved beyond conflict, humans had spent millennia perfecting it. They understood that adaptation was a two-way process.
"All ships, implement pattern Delta 7, Admiral Martinez commanded.
Randomize approach vectors and firing solutions. No ship fires the same way twice." The human fleet shifted tactics mid-battle, something that should have been impossible without sophisticated coordination systems. Instead, they relied on the chaotic creativity that advanced species had dismissed as primitive inefficiency. Captain James Murphy's converted cargo hauler Stubborn Mule demonstrated human tactical innovation by ramming his ship directly into one of the entity's weapon clusters, detonating his remaining ammunition in a massive explosion that carved away a significant section of the entity's hull. "This is Murphy," he transmitted as his crew evacuated to escape pods. "Sometimes the old ways work best. Ram the bastards." 3 more human vessels followed Murphy's example, their captains making the same instantaneous decision to sacrifice their ships for tactical advantage.
The entity, programmed to preserve technological resources, couldn't comprehend such wasteful tactics.
Dr. Mirlan watched in amazement as human crews continued fighting even when their ships suffered damage that should have been crippling. Their manually operating systems that were damaged beyond automated function, she reported to the Council.
Their inefficient designs allow for incredible damage tolerance. The tide of battle shifted when the human fleet's true secret weapon revealed itself, adaptability born of desperation. As the entity learned to counter their weapons, humans improvised new ones. Cargo containers filled with scrap metal became massive shotgun blasts. Mining explosives were reconfigured into shaped charges. Even atmospheric maintenance systems were weaponized when engineers figured out how to turn life support into improvised flamethrowers. Commander Lisa Park's science vessel Curiosity made the breakthrough discovery. "Admiral, I found its weak spot," she transmitted while her ship dodged energy beams. "The entity maintains central coordination through quantum processing cores it can't properly armor, they're too complex for physical protection. All ships, concentrate fire on the central mass." Martinez ordered. "Nuclear bombardment, pattern Omega." The final assault was humanity at its most savage and most heroic. Dozens of ships closed to point-blank range, trading their lives for perfect targeting solutions. Nuclear warheads detonated directly against the entity's core processing centers, their primitive but devastating explosions overwhelming quantum computation matrices that couldn't adapt fast enough. Captain Yuki Tanaka's missile boat Rising Sun delivered the killing blow, her ship's entire complement of nuclear weapons detonating simultaneously as she flew directly into the entity's primary processing core. The explosion tore through the entity's central nervous system, collapsing its coordination and triggering cascading failures throughout its massive form. As the entity convulsed and died, its absorbed technology breaking apart and drifting powerless through space, the surviving human ships regrouped around their flagship. Of the 300 vessels that had entered the battle, only 67 remained functional. The Galactic Council station's communication channels fell silent as every advanced species tried to process what they had witnessed. The savage humans had accomplished what 17 civilized species could not, they had faced the galaxy's greatest threat and emerged victorious. Admiral Martinez's final transmission to the Council was simple and direct: threat neutralized. Entity destroyed. Human fleet returning to Earth for repairs and resupply. Ambassador Zachthal's response came after a long moment of stunned silence. "Admiral, the Galactic Council would like to formally reconsider humanity's membership application." "Appreciated," Martinez replied. "But we'll need to take a rain check. We've got 67 ships to repair and about 2,000 families to notify about casualties. We'll talk when we're done taking care of our people."
As the human fleet departed, the advanced species of the galaxy began to understand that they had witnessed something unprecedented, a species that combined the savage efficiency of primitive warfare with the moral courage to fight for others without asking for reward. In the weeks that followed, as the Galactic Council debated new membership criteria and the nature of civilization itself, one fact became clear: sometimes the galaxy needed savages.
Sometimes survival required the kind of controlled chaos that only humans seemed capable of providing.
The invitation to join galactic civilization would wait. Humanity had proven they belonged not by meeting advanced standards, but by exceeding them when it mattered most. They had saved not just themselves, but everyone, and they had done it their way, with weapons and tactics the galaxy had considered obsolete. It was the most human thing they could have done, proving their worth not through submission to civilized standards, but by redefining what civilization could be when it truly needed to survive.